For decades, millions of people around the world have watched André Rieu step onto the stage with his trademark violin, elegant smile, and seemingly effortless charm. To audiences, he has always appeared calm, confident, and completely at home under the spotlight. His concerts feel like celebrations filled with joy, romance, and timeless music. But behind that unforgettable image was a story that very few people truly understood. As André Rieu reached the remarkable age of 75, he began reflecting on the journey that transformed him from a young musician with an impossible dream into one of the world's most recognizable classical performers. And what he revealed wasn't simply a story about fame or success. It was a story about rejection, sacrifice, relentless determination, and the personal battles hidden behind every standing ovation. Long before sold-out arenas, lavish stage productions, and audiences stretching across continents, André's future looked anything but certain. Many believed classical music belonged in grand concert halls, appreciated only by a small and aging audience. The idea that a violinist could fill stadiums, inspire millions, and become an international entertainment phenomenon seemed almost impossible. Friends, critics, and even respected figures within the music world questioned whether his vision could ever work. Some dismissed his ideas as unrealistic, while others quietly expected him to fail. Yet those doubts only strengthened his resolve, pushing him to pursue a path that few had ever dared to imagine. As the years passed, André refused to abandon his dream, even when the financial pressure became overwhelming and every major decision carried enormous risk. There were moments when everything he had built seemed ready to collapse, moments when a single mistake could have ended the career that millions now admire. While audiences saw dazzling performances and joyful melodies, they never witnessed the sleepless nights, difficult choices, and constant uncertainty waiting behind the curtain. Those unseen struggles shaped not only the performer the world came to know but also the man standing behind the violin. Then, at 75, André began looking back with a level of honesty that surprised many of his longtime fans. Instead of celebrating only the victories, he acknowledged the setbacks that nearly broke his spirit and the lessons that forever changed the course of his life. But as inspiring as those reflections were, they also uncovered a chapter filled with unexpected challenges that almost prevented his extraordinary career from ever becoming reality. And what happened next would test his dream in ways no one could have predicted. When André Rieu decided to reshape the way the world experienced classical music, he wasn't simply trying to build a successful career. He was challenging traditions that had remained unchanged for generations. While many orchestras focused on formal performances inside prestigious concert halls, André imagined something entirely different. He believed classical music could make people laugh, cry, sing along, and feel genuinely connected. It was a vision that sounded exciting to some, but to many within the industry, it seemed far too ambitious. Critics questioned whether audiences would ever embrace such an approach, warning that mixing entertainment with classical performance could damage his credibility. Yet André remained convinced that emotion mattered more than convention, even if it meant standing almost completely alone. Building that dream came at a tremendous personal cost. Creating spectacular concerts required enormous investments, and each production demanded more than most musicians would ever risk. There were periods when the financial pressure became so intense that every new tour felt like a gamble. Success was never guaranteed, and one disappointing season could have erased years of hard work. While audiences admired the magnificent stages, elegant costumes, and breathtaking performances, very few realized how much responsibility rested on André's shoulders. Behind every smiling entrance onto the stage were countless meetings, difficult decisions, and sleepless nights spent wondering whether the next performance would justify the enormous risks he had taken. Despite those challenges, something remarkable began to happen. Families who had never attended a classical concert started filling arenas. Young listeners discovered orchestral music for the first time, while older generations found themselves rediscovering melodies they thought they had forgotten. Concerts transformed into unforgettable experiences where thousands of strangers laughed, applauded, and even danced together. Slowly, The same critics who had doubted his vision were forced to acknowledge that André had achieved something few believed possible. He hadn't simply become a successful violinist. He had introduced classical music to millions who had never imagined themselves enjoying it. But the growing fame brought an entirely new set of pressures. International recognition meant constant travel, endless rehearsals, demanding schedules, and expectations that seemed to grow larger with every passing year. Maintaining such an enormous global operation became increasingly exhausting, and the public rarely saw the emotional toll it could take. Every performance had to feel magical, regardless of how difficult life behind the scenes might have been. As André continued smiling before thousands of cheering fans, hidden challenges were quietly beginning to emerge. Challenges that would soon force him to confront some of the hardest moments of his extraordinary career. As André Rieu's concerts continued drawing massive audiences across the world, many people assumed he had finally reached a place where success came easily. The sold-out arenas, standing ovations, and worldwide recognition created the image of a man whose career had become unstoppable. But behind the scenes, the pressure of maintaining that success grew heavier with every passing year. Every new tour had to surpass the last. Every performance carried the expectations of thousands of fans who had traveled great distances to witness the magic they had heard so much about. The higher André climbed, the more difficult it became to stay there. At the same time, his unconventional approach to classical music continued to divide opinions. While millions embraced his concerts as joyful celebrations that introduced orchestral music to new audiences, some traditional critics argued that his productions placed too much emphasis on entertainment. They questioned whether elaborate stage designs, humor, and audience participation belonged alongside classical masterpieces. André listened to those opinions, but he never allowed them to redefine his purpose. He often maintained that if people left his concerts with a deeper appreciation for music, then he had achieved exactly what he set out to do. Rather than engaging in endless public arguments, he chose to let the audience decide through their continued support. Yet public criticism was only part of the challenge. The relentless pace of international touring demanded extraordinary discipline, requiring long periods away from home and countless hours of preparation that fans rarely witnessed. Each concert represented the work of a large team whose livelihoods depended on every performance running smoothly. André carried not only the responsibility of entertaining millions but also the weight of leading an organization that relied on careful planning, trust, and unwavering commitment. It was a burden that few people outside his inner circle fully understood. Looking back at 75, André has spoken about how those years taught him that genuine success is measured by far more than applause or ticket sales. The greatest victories often came from overcoming moments of uncertainty, adapting to setbacks, and refusing to lose sight of the dream that first inspired him. Those experiences strengthened his resolve, but they also changed him in ways the public could never see. And just when it seemed his remarkable journey had reached its peak, an unexpected series of challenges would force him to rethink everything he believed about success, resilience, and the legacy he hoped to leave behind. By the time André Rieu entered the later years of his career, he had accomplished what once seemed impossible. He had transformed classical music into a global spectacle, inspired generations of musicians, and built a loyal audience that followed him across continents. Yet with every passing year came a new realization. Maintaining an extraordinary legacy was often more difficult than creating one. Expectations never disappeared. If anything, they became even greater. Fans expected every concert to feel as magical as the last, while André knew that delivering the same level of excellence demanded more preparation, more discipline, and more emotional energy than ever before. Age also brought a different perspective. Instead of focusing solely on expanding his career, André began reflecting on the moments that truly defined his life. He spoke about how success had never been just about sold-out venues or international recognition. It was about bringing people together through music, creating memories that families could share, and proving that emotions could cross every language and cultural barrier. Looking back, he realized that some of his greatest achievements were the smiles he saw in the audience, the letters from fans who said his music had helped them through difficult times, and the countless lives touched by performances that lasted only a few hours but stayed in people's hearts for years. At the same time, André openly acknowledged that no long career is free from disappointment. There were concerts that didn't unfold exactly as planned, business decisions that carried enormous pressure, and periods when exhaustion threatened to overshadow the joy that had first inspired him to pick up a violin. Those experiences reminded him that every public triumph was supported by countless private sacrifices. The glamorous image audiences admired was only one side of the story. Behind every performance stood years of relentless work, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to a dream that many had once dismissed as impossible. As he reflected on those decades, André arrived at a conclusion that surprised many of his admirers. The greatest lesson of his journey wasn't that talent alone creates success, nor that fame guarantees happiness. Instead, he came to believe that perseverance, passion, and the courage to remain true to one's vision matter far more than public approval. It was a realization earned through decades of victories and setbacks alike. But even after sharing these deeply personal reflections, there remained one final truth about his extraordinary career, a truth that tied together every struggle, every triumph, and every unforgettable moment. And that final revelation would leave an even deeper impression than anyone expected. As André Rieu reflected on a lifetime devoted to music, one truth became impossible to ignore. People often assumed that the defining moments of his career were the sold-out stadiums, television specials, and record-breaking tours. But in his own reflections, those milestones were only part of a much larger story. The moments that stayed with him most were often the quiet ones. Seeing an audience member move to tears during a familiar melody, watching 3 generations of one family enjoying a concert together, or hearing from fans who said his performances had brought them comfort during some of the darkest periods of their lives. Those experiences reminded him that music's greatest power was not in applause, but in its ability to connect people in ways words never could. Looking back, André also recognized that many of the obstacles he once feared had become the very experiences that shaped his character. The criticism that once felt discouraging taught him resilience. The financial risks that once kept him awake at night forced him to believe in his vision when almost no one else did. Even the moments of uncertainty, when success seemed painfully out of reach, became proof that perseverance often matters more than immediate results. Had everything come easily, he admitted, he might never have developed the determination that ultimately carried him through decades of extraordinary achievement. Perhaps the most meaningful realization came from understanding that a career is measured not only by awards or headlines, but by the impact left on other people. André's dream had never been to change classical music itself. It was to change the way people felt about it. By making orchestral performances welcoming, emotional, and accessible, he introduced millions of listeners to a world they might otherwise never have explored. That legacy, more than any record or recognition, became the achievement he valued most as he reached the milestone of 75. Yet even after all the concerts, all the challenges, and all the unforgettable memories, André believed his story carried one final lesson that extended far beyond music. It was a lesson about courage, purpose, and refusing to abandon a dream simply because others couldn't see it. And when he finally summed up everything he had learned throughout his remarkable journey, his concluding message revealed why his extraordinary career continues to inspire people around the world, and why his legacy may endure for generations to come. As André Rieu celebrated his 75th year, his reflections revealed that the greatest truth behind his extraordinary career had never been hidden inside awards, ticket sales, or international fame. It was found in the countless moments when music brought complete strangers together, turning concert halls into places filled with joy, hope, and shared emotion. Looking back over decades of triumphs and setbacks, he recognized that every obstacle had served a purpose. The criticism that once seemed discouraging had strengthened his determination. The financial risks that once threatened everything he had built taught him to trust his instincts. And the years of relentless work proved that lasting success is rarely the result of talent alone. It is built through resilience, patience, and an unwavering belief in a vision that others may not immediately understand. Perhaps the most surprising part of André's story is how little he allowed public opinion to define him. Throughout his journey, there were always voices questioning his choices or suggesting that his approach to classical music was too unconventional. Instead of allowing those opinions to shape his future, he stayed focused on the audiences who found happiness, comfort, and inspiration in his performances. Over time, that decision became the foundation of his legacy. Millions of people who had never imagined attending a classical concert discovered a lifelong appreciation for orchestral music because one musician was willing to challenge expectations and present it in a way that felt welcoming, emotional, and unforgettable. Today, André Rieu's influence reaches far beyond the stage. His career stands as a reminder that genuine success is not measured only by fame or recognition but by the lives touched along the way. His journey proves that dreams often demand sacrifice, that criticism is an inevitable companion to innovation, and that true fulfillment comes from remaining authentic even when the easier path would be to conform. For countless fans around the world, André's story is not simply about becoming one of the most celebrated violinists of his generation. It is about having the courage to believe in an impossible dream and inspiring millions to believe in their own. If this remarkable journey surprised you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible celebrity stories, and let us know in the comments. What do you think is the greatest lesson from André Rieu's extraordinary career?